Hi, I'm Joanne Eckton, and welcome to our Facebook Live event. This is actually the last Women Get It Facebook Live event for 2017, and we're here at Lipscomb University. So we are really working to focus to start bringing more students into Women Get It and to work at the collegiate level. And what better way than to be hosted by our university here in Nashville. So I'm going to share with you our esteemed guests and ask them to introduce themselves. Our topic is around mentoring and the importance of mentoring and why you need one. So I'm going to start on my left and with Lawrence, if you would just take a moment and introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Lawrence Blank-Cook. I'm a managing director at Deloitte. I work in technology, and the space that I work in is between the business and the technology developers to really develop technology solutions.
Thanks. Beth?
Hi, I'm Beth McCart, and I'm one of the co-founders of WomenGetIT, and I'm a talent acquisition specialist over at Ramsey Solutions.
Good afternoon, I'm Cheryl Moore, and I'm an implementation manager at Halifax. I've been in the IT space for a little over 25 years, so I have my share of mentors and mentoring.
Hi, my name is Hope Cooper Bucknor. Excuse me, I'm the Assistant Director of Communications at Belmont University. And I just recently, a few months ago, published my thesis on the value of collegiate level mentoring experiences for women. So I'm very excited to be part of this conversation.
So we have a very diverse panel, and we're going to start with the very first question, which is to get rid of all of the myths and misconceptions, and let's actually define what we mean by mentor. So Hope, if I'm going to start with you, if you give us your definition of what you mean by a mentor.
Sure. So I think that is one of the most challenging pieces of this conversation, that often mentoring, mentor, mentee terms are really open to interpretation by the folks that are involved in the relationship. So mentoring can look like a lot of different things. We often hear coaching, we hear sponsor, mentor, a number of ways to describe the relationship. But for me, what it boils down to is a relationship between people. Could be two people, could be a group of people, could be peers, could be folks in an authority relationship, but it just comes down to people who are learning from each other. I really believe that mentoring relationships are two-way streets. So the mentee, though often the one who might be traditionally learning from a mentor, is also in an opportunity to educate too. So both individuals are learning from each other, growing, and really just augmenting the other person's experience. So I'm not sure that I have an official definition of mentoring, more of just kind of open to interpretation, but what it comes down to for me is a personalized opportunity to really grow from someone else or someone else's, could be more than one, but really just a personalized experience to learn.
Great. And rather than going road back and forth down the group of you, I know you gave a pretty comprehensive answer, so I'm going to address the other three panelists. What else would you add to that about different types of mentorships? Is there anything that you would add to it?
Yeah, I think you can have exactly what you're talking about, just really flexible mentor situations where you're in groups, maybe going to Women Get It. It's a great opportunity to get some mentoring. But also just relationships that you can gain perspective and insights from each other.
Another thing that I'll add to that is when I think about mentorship, like in the traditional sense, it's like, more like one-on-one coaching type thing. But I also think that you can have an indirect impact in mentoring. So a lot of the books I read has a lot of mentoring too. So I'm actually currently reading right now Patrick Lencioni, Ideal Team Player, and that talks about being that like hungry, humble, and smart type person, and the person that others want to be around and gather around. So indirectly, that's actually coaching me, but it's not a traditional relationship. Like I don't know Patrick, he doesn't know me, but in a sense that he is coaching me and helping me become a better person. So.
I think these ladies have covered
they have. But I want to really turn a little bit more towards you. You really did not, in your introduction, share with our audience how involved you really are with mentoring and have been for quite some time in the community at Deloitte. So this is an area where you're an expert. And so as an expert, I'm going to ask you the hard question.
Okay.
how do you find one, and how would you approach someone to ask them to be your mentor?
And I'll give a little bit of background. I am co-chair for Middle Tennessee for Million Women Mentors. So that's what Joanne is kind of referring to. And I really enjoy getting involved with that. If anybody wants to get involved with it, we can talk about it later. It's interesting you asked that question, because I think the first mentor I got paired with, and I was reflecting on it as I was preparing for today, the very first one from a corporate situation, we did kind of a blind pairing. She got to request me and I got to request her. And it was just a wonderful experience. And ever since then, I have really known what it did for me and wanted to pay it forward for other folks as well. I think you just ask. I will say you have to ask at the right time. I asked somebody once within the last 5 years, and it was at a luncheon. It was the wrong time to ask her. And she said, I'm pretty busy. And I thought, this is not going to work out. I should have had coffee with you. I should have, left it in a more quiet ask, not in a group situation. But it never hurts to ask. If someone is too busy, they'll tell you I'm too busy, or they'll help you find someone else. But I say always ask. Just ask. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I think timing is really crucial in an environment. And then also I think that you need to be upfront with what the commit is.
Yes.
Because if you're asking, if someone asks me to be a mentor, I will automatically assume, okay, well, I need to talk to them a couple hours a week, and this is a really big commitment. But if they're just saying, hey, if we could just grab coffee once a quarter to bounce some ideas off you, that's something I can do, right? So I think it's being really upfront with what expectations are, and laying that out there so that the two of you can figure out if that's something that's going to work out. I always hear at work that, they always say to be unclear is to be unkind. So if you're not clear with expectations, then you're not going to get what you want out of that relationship.
Cheryl, what would you add to that?
I'd say make sure you know who you're asking. Establish a bit of a relationship with the person beforehand, or enough of a working relationship where you've had experience of knowing what they value, what traits and behaviors they have that you want to find out more about, versus just, for a better analogy, just a resume.
Right.
Know the real person and what you're asking first.
Okay. So interesting that you would say that when your first experience with mentoring was a blind pairing, and you were very fortunate in that worked out. I found that really what you're describing is find someone that you actually have at least some commonality of values or goals or your career journey to start with. Right?
So I did know her, I will be honest.
You did?
Yeah, and she knew me, but we didn't work closely together. And I had admired her from afar, and she had seen me and thought, I don't know if she thought she needs mentoring, or when we put names in, she had put me in, and I got it. So that was
it wasn't quite so random.
Yeah. And one of the things that worked nicely with that I've loved and I would love to do again is she had somebody else request her, and so she agreed to take on 2 mentees at the same time, and we would go to lunch together. And so, while I might not have a million things to bring up and talk to her about, somebody else would, and then we would bounce ideas off of each other, and we were often encountering the same challenges.
And one of the reasons we made a shift in Women Get It, we started with trying to pair up mentors and mentees, and there's so much chemistry involved and really just commitment and such that really wasn't very effective. When we shift to this peer mentoring type of structure, it really is much more powerful. And, I would do the same sort of thing you described, which is, hey, I'm going to be at this coffee shop at this time if you want to come talk, and you'd have 5 or 6 people show up, right? And those are great conversations.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I firmly believe that there's a way for you to have a lot of mentors, and there's certain characteristics in people that you admire and that you want more coaching in that particular area. So it doesn't have to be, you only get one mentor in a lifetime. I have several mentors that I call and ask for advice, and also you mentioned that you've got to know about who you're asking, right? You're not going to ask a 400-pound person to be your fitness instructor, right? So it's like really important that you know that your core values align and that the strength that you are seeking or the weakness that you're seeking to strengthen, they are possessing that characteristic.
So I want to shift the conversation just a little bit, Hope, and bring in some of your thinking, because you focus on mentoring at the collegiate level, which is not something that we typically talk about. Usually mentoring is in the workplace. So why would a student want a mentor, and how would they go about finding one?
Yeah. Well, I think there's lots of reasons for that. So I started this study about a year and a half ago to look at the value of collegiate level mentoring experiences specifically for women, though I do believe there's value for men as well, but my population primarily focusing on women. And what I found was that what the research shows, mentoring is primarily beneficial in 3 areas: career-related, role modeling, and psychosocial. So career-related being developing a network, helping me access my career more easily or build my career. Role modeling being I want to be like you, Joanne, or other women that I admire in my industry. And then finally psychosocial being helping me develop that foundational psychosocial developmental piece of who I am. And what I found from the women in my study is that it's that psychosocial piece that our collegiate students might not realize that they're getting from the relationship, but that's really what all of my subjects spoke to the most. And so I think that says a lot for our collegiate environments. I think that points out significant opportunity for us to provide more psychosocial mentoring for our students. Because what we know about young children, elementary school students and beyond, is that we talk about this hierarchy of needs, that we have to build this foundational component of our kindergarten, first grade, second grade students, that if they're not getting fed at home or if they don't feel loved, they're going to have a hard time learning how to add and subtract. And I think we can apply those same components to our collegiate women. That if they don't have this foundational core aspect of who they are developed, which they're not born knowing how to do, they need folks to pour into that, then it's going to be much more challenging to raise their hand in English or get the STAR internship. So convoluted way to say, I think that mentoring has many benefits, but particularly for women in a collegiate environment, students, I think it's that psychosocial piece that's really key to the foundational building of our women, particularly. As far as how to find a mentor, I think there are lots of opportunities. I always tell students, you don't have to be afraid of the word. I think sometimes, particularly students might feel a little nervous about saying mentor or asking someone to be their mentor. It sometimes feels like a proposal of sorts, right. Which can be intimidating, certainly. But I encourage students to use the term. I think it's really important. I think faculty can be great mentors, staff, family members, people in the industry. I do think it begins with a relationship. So I just tell women, think about the people in your life that are impactful. Think about the women that you admire and start there.
Great. So you're touching on my next question, and it's almost like it's a lead in the way that this is working out.
We didn't rehearse this at all.
We did, but I could ask 1,000 questions, because this brain trust of the four of you is just awesome to have you here. We want to talk about mentoring and mentoring relationships and the importance of relationships. And Cheryl, I know you've been in many mentoring relationships. So talk about your experiences and what makes a relationship work and what do you need to do to keep it alive? Whether you want to talk about it from a mentor or mentee perspective, but what are your thoughts about how to make a mentoring relationship work?
I'll start from the mentee. Where I benefited so much from throughout my life. And I agree with the personal, finding those people in your personal network that you really strive to be like. And those are kind of things that you get sometimes from afar, learning by example. And then going into the career space I had been very fortunate to work underneath several, what I would call just high quality character, very successful women, whether that be successful in position or just successful in being happy with where they are. And the way that I gained so much from those relationships is to be respectful of who they are and what they could give me, and to just foster and develop those relationships through the years. So I've got 2 women that I have been in this relationship with for about 15 years. And those are about once a quarter, taking the time to send out an email and say, let's get together. But then also knowing they're a phone call away, if need be. And those, because I've matured and developed. And when those first started, they were much closer in those mentoring relationships where I needed more. But safe zones, ones that you know that you can talk to in a more private setting, where you can share things without judgment. And I think that's really important to foster that kind of development of that relationship, is it's someone that you can talk with, who can give you honest feedback and can receive feedback to them as well. But do that in a way that you don't feel like you're going to be judged. You're going to be coached. Okay. And so that's really important. So I just try to take that and emulate that back out with people that I try to work with who are in situations that, are looking for someone to give some guidance, whether that be my daughter, who's, grown adult with her kids and knowing when to give advice and when not to.
When she'll listen.
That's a whole other story.
That's right. I wonder if my daughter's listening right now.
But listen, you develop those things through your working relationships and what to do with that, but all the different. So I think that's the main thing from both those angles, is to really understand what you're looking for and what they can give you, and then investing that time. So keeping it alive is just keeping in touch.
Okay. Beth, what would you add to that?
So I've had 3 types of mentoring relationships, one being mentored, one being menteed, and then I've also even done reverse mentorship, which means my mentor then became the mentee. Because he was actually then coming, we talked about not being a one-way street, making sure that we're making deposits as well as withdrawals with our mentorship relationships. So he was asking me hey, how do I set up an Instagram account? And how do I get that social media thing going that these baby boomers know little about, right? So it was pretty cool to see how, he taught me so much. And then going into what the industry was doing and how to keep up with that, he needed some sharpening of skills in the digital world to make sure that he was fresh with his skills and that he could provide value in that area too. So that was a pretty cool thing to see.
And that's really just an example of what Cheryl mentioned, which is respecting what each other brings to the table.
Right. Absolutely.
Because it really isn't mentor-mentee in any kind of authority type relationship. It's we're 2 people, or more than 2 people perhaps, and helping each other.
I would add also that I do think the onus is a little bit on the mentee to come to the table with some topics. We ran a mentoring program with our team members in India, and those were very facilitated, very paired, and sometimes the chemistry worked and sometimes it didn't. And, obviously it was mainly over the phone because we weren't getting together face to face, but we had to stay up front. We were very specific. This is what you need to come to the table with every single time. Don't think that the mentor is going to be showing up with this. Another concept that we used that I loved, and I think Hope it was a little bit about what you were talking about, but this concept of a board of directors. You get one mentor, you might get another mentor, and you have different people that you go to with different types of questions, or maybe you take one question to all of them. But having that board of directors that really helps you, and it's family members as well as colleagues or people that you run into, having that kind of setup at least helps me work through any large career decision I'm trying to make.
What about, when is it time to end that relationship? When do you feel like it's run its course and perhaps it shifts into a friendship, or somehow that mentor-mentee type relationship has reached its end? So when do you recognize the signs, and how do you handle that? So I'm going to throw that out. That's a tough question to ask. I'm going to throw it out in general for whichever one of you is brave enough to field it.
I'll feel it.
Okay.
I guess none of you were shy. I love it.
We were just trying to be polite.
That's right.
I would say time to end a mentorship when you're not, and maybe not end, but maybe it's the end of the season where you're not talking to that person on a regular basis anymore. I've never completely cut off a mentorship. I've always kind of left the door open. But one of the things that's kind of like the sign of like, hey, it's time to move on, is like when the communication just kind of dies naturally, right? And then you're like, okay, well, I'm not in constant communication because I don't have that like need anymore. It's the end of the season, and okay, so maybe we'll touch base with once a year or every 6 months or whatever you decide that's going to be beneficial to keep that relationship somewhat open and somewhat alive, because you never want to completely end something, I think.
Okay. I like that end of season. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. I agree that I think mentoring is seasonal, and so even you mentioned being in contact with the same two women for 15 years, but it was more frequent at certain periods of your life. So I do think mentoring is seasonal. And I think a lot of times we talk about, is formal mentoring more valuable than informal mentoring? What if there isn't chemistry? And I think there are pros and cons to both strategies. I think one of the nice pieces of a formal mentoring relationship, whether it's through a program at work or within a nonprofit, is that there is often an end, a beginning and an end. Best practice generally tells us that 1 year, it takes 1 year to begin a relationship that's meaningful and then to reap some benefits from it. But anything less than that can sometimes you're not going to get as much meaningful involvement from. So it is sometimes nice to be in a formal experience because then it's clear, like, we're done, we're going to take the summer off, or we might try a new match. But I do think that's a challenge. And sometimes what intimidates particularly students about mentoring is that how do I navigate the unknowns? How do I know when to say, thanks for your time, see you later, or to keep it going? But I agree with you about that. I think it feels natural, and to kind of lean into the natural tendencies of the relationship, and not be uncomfortable with saying, like, okay, for this season, I'm going to move, we can move to bi-weekly or every other month or whatever makes sense.
Yeah. And if you don't have chemistry with that person, it's like, okay, well, I need to find somebody else. Like, right, you didn't do your homework ahead of time to make sure that was the person you want to move forward with. I think it's okay to just say, hey, I'm looking at doing these things now, and because of these things, I'm going to be concentrating, working with other people in these areas. And it just sets up the table where it's not like awkward or like, oh, hey, you didn't do a very good job, or we don't have the the chemistry, that it's just not there. But it's a way of saying, hey, I'm going to focus on these other areas. I think that's the polite way to do it, right?
And the formal mentorships, like through work, give you some great experience with those, but they do have a stopping and starting. And I think too, I had a great mentor that was set up through work, and then she gave me some phenomenal advice and really enjoyed it. But when actions started speaking louder than words, it was my clue of she really didn't have the time to invest in it anymore, so I just needed to let it go. Welcome it at any time, because she was great, but she's just really busy. And don't take that personal, just
Right.
It is.
Right. Just respect that. Yes, respect there's other things happening in their lives and in their careers as well. Right. Before we completely run out of time, I'd like to talk to our audience, both here in the room and online. If you have any questions for the panelists, we'd love to hear them. So while folks online might be thinking and typing in their questions, what about you in the audience? Do you have any questions for our panelists?
Don't be shy.
It was a great conversation. All of my questions were answered. It also provided me a different perspective to look at as a mentor, and then also looking to be mentored. There's other avenues you can take. You don't always have to have that structured, formal way to go in. There is this informal or informal way to get engaged, to be a mentor, or to be a mentee. So this dialogue kind of helped the perspective, keep the perspective there, and keep the thinking going. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for reinforcing it. It's kind of tough for these ladies to take time out of their days to come be here, so it's nice to get some reinforcement that the message is helpful. Anyone else, or anything coming in from online?
I do want to give a shout out. Angela Uno and Tonneson, I hope I said that right, is watching live from Hudson Alpha Institute for Biotechnology with Women Who Code HSV. Very cool. And Donna Becker is also watching, and Clark Bucknor. So I just really give some shout outs there.
Anymore.
Clark is her husband, by the way, so.
Of course, he's watching.
All right, we have just a couple of minutes left, so maybe to close, do you have an example of a mentoring relationship that really helped you that you may not have been able to get in any other way? Has there been a mentoring example that you can share with us?
I'll give an example of something that's very pertinent right now. Somebody asked me to be his mentor, and he actually is a cloud engineer and works very closely in the cloud. And I said, well, sure, as long as you teach me more about the cloud. And we actually we have a walking trail around our campus. So we go outside and walk and do all of our mentoring to each other outside. So I encourage you not to think you got to be sitting at a desk or you have to be sitting at a coffee shop. You can do it at different places.
There's a question that came in from online. How valuable is a mentor outside of your expertise?
I think that's something that you want to strengthen. So if it's an area where, you see a weakness, and I'm assuming that they mean like technical expertise. So say, like, for example, like you wanted to get more experience in cloud, and that would obviously be definitely beneficial. But if it's something that you don't want to get more experience in, then I don't understand why someone would be seeking that out. Am I understanding that question correctly?
I think outside of your expertise, just like if you needed someone to help you with communication, right? Or delivery, or how you carry yourself. All of those. It doesn't matter what expertise you have. It matters from the soft skills.
Sure.
And sometimes it's just, how did you handle this situation? Because we all have similar situations, no matter what our expertise.
Right.
And we all have different perspectives, and I do want to close maybe with what one of my core beliefs is that every person on this planet knows at least one thing I don't know. And so it's my job to find out what that is. And so really, I think the secret to mentoring is to being open, being comfortable, and being willing to listen to new ideas and new perspectives. And so regardless of what your area of expertise is, we can all learn from each other. Well, thank you, ladies. We are about out of time. Just a couple of closing statements for the folks listening. If you are here in the Nashville area, we're going to do a happy hour on December 5th. Love for you guys to come join us. We're going to be at Ember Ski Lodge and just kind of ease into the end of the year and take it easy. So we don't have any more formal programming scheduled for 2017. However, 2018, we have a lot of things coming, a lot of exciting changes and announcements. So follow us on social media. We're on all platforms. And one big thing is we are getting ready to kick off some e-commerce, and we're going to do a limited edition t-shirt. I've been modeling it here today, if you haven't noticed. The website, Beth, will you give us the website of where it's going live?
Yeah, it's WomenGetIT.BigCartel.com, and we'll put a link in the social media feed. And if you're watching on Instagram, it's the last post that we just made about the limited edition t-shirt, and there's a couple of items that we are
really
also
cool
put there
items.
too.
Yeah, it's really cool items. And so, yes, this shirt it's out there for Black Friday, so get it now because we will keep it as limited edition. It's pretty popular here in the area, and like to get it out for just those of you who are quick action takers. So it's out there now. So follow us on social media, join us if you're here in Nashville at our happy hour, and then we will kick off with this next Facebook Live in January, and next year we are going to move these to monthly instead of bi-monthly, and so you'll start to hear more from us. All right. Thank you all. Thank you for listening and being part of this.